Hey, what's up guys, this is Tristan, and recently I resumed reading Magi. I read volumes 9 through 21, and oh boy, it was quite the treat. So without further ado, let's get into talking about it. So basically the world of Magi is basically this Middle Eastern world where everyone's using magic or magic tools or spells or something like that, and basically there's these really powerful people called Magis, and Aladdin, the main character, is one of the Magis. Now, without going into any spoiler territory, there's a scene in the series where one of the other Magis named Judar is talking, and he's basically saying that there's only really supposed to be 3 Magis at a time. So one of the reasons this is really weird is because Aladdin is actually considered the 4th Magi, and in the history of this world, that's never happened before. There's never been a 4th Magi. So Judar is basically like, well, I'm not going anywhere. The other 2 Magi aren't dead from what I hear. So what's going on here? Who is this new Magi and where did he come from? And even though that may not be as big of a moment to a lot of other people, I really think that it adds on to some of the mystique about Aladdin, and it really adds on to some of the mystery surrounding him, and it really makes me hyped for some of the reveals about his character later on in the series, and I hope there's some good stuff down the road. So another thing I like about Magi is this series moves at a breakneck pace, and I'm not going to say it moves at a breakneck pace all the time, because there were definitely some moments that could have been like a chapter or just a few pages at that, and they moved on way too slowly, but for the most part it was really well paced and it was pretty fast in a good way. And this really helps out make the series enjoyable, because a lot of other shonen series, they just drag really slowly and one arc could be like 10 volumes. But Magi, it never really does that. The arcs are usually pretty short. The longest arc was the Wizard School arc, and that arc, I'm glad it was pretty long because it was great. But nonetheless, you know, the series, it's always a good pace, and I really like that in the series. Speaking about the Wizard School arc in Magi, let's talk about it, because that's definitely my favorite arc in the series so far. So if you can't tell already, this arc is basically the Magi equivalent to Harry Potter, and I was told that before I went into the series. And you know, I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit like Harry Potter, but it was way more like those movies than I was expecting. And I'm not trying to say the Wizard School arc in Magi felt like a ripoff or anything, because it definitely didn't. But if you're a fan of those movies, and if you're a fan of Magi, I would highly recommend checking out that arc, because you'll probably love it. It definitely still felt like Magi, but it did have a good amount of some Harry Potter vibes in there, and it was a blast to read. It had a lot of good comedy moments, a lot of great story moments, and it made for my favorite arc in the series as of right now. One of the other things I really like about this arc is the main antagonist. He's such a dynamic character, probably one of the most dynamic villains in the series, and it's hard to talk about it without spoiling anything, but just his ideals and the way, you know, he brings up his, you know, beliefs in the series, it really makes for some good, you know, debate, some good conflict in there, and it's just really great. Now, one of the main things that makes that character so great is he doesn't really see himself as a villain. He kind of just sees himself as having different ideals than Aladdin and the non-magicians. And this brings up some really interesting themes, because Mogamet isn't pure evil like the villains in Al Thamin. He was just done dirty one too many times by non-magicians, and it made him resent those types of people. So those are pretty much my main opinions about the Wizard School arc in Magi. I kind of have some other opinions, but I don't really want to spoil anything, so I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. As for some of my other opinions about the series, I really like the comedy. It was always a blast to read, and I got some good laughs out of it when reading the series. Also, I really like the character Haku Ryu. When he was first introduced, I kind of assumed he was going to be a pretty minor character, but he actually did have a pretty good role in the series, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him, because where he left off at volume 21, I really like that stuff. So before I end the video, I do want to give one major complaint with the series, and that's that some of the relations between the different kingdoms and, you know, the geography, sometimes that type of stuff gets pretty confusing, because it's mentioned a lot, but it was mainly just brought up in small little pieces here and there, and I kind of wish it was brought up in, you know, a few pages at the end of each volume to help, you know, remember what each relation was in the series, because it was kind of hard to keep track with everything. Anyways, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. If you enjoy, make sure to give a big old smack to that like button. Subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. I really have been appreciating all the subs recently, and drop a comment letting me down below about Magi, whether you've read the series, never read it, or read it to completion. Let me down below your thoughts on it, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I will see you guys in the next video.